You know, there is a fascinating pattern in US history, a short 21-day cycle where the country seems to run on a streak of exceptional luck. I call this period the victory window. In 2026, this window opens on June 23rd and runs through July 14th. Looking back, this is the exact time when Washington consistently closes deals that once seemed impossible. We are talking about billion-dollar infrastructure agreements like in 2022, or the most significant trade pacts in decades, like back in 2007. Even the most stubborn diplomatic deadlocks in the Middle East have suddenly cleared up during these specific dates. And it's not just a coincidence. Mathematically, all these events fall precisely within the same 3 weeks corridor. Now, in the summer of 2026, we are entering this cycle once again, and just look at what's happening. The Trump administration is currently navigating 3 massive negotiation tracks simultaneously: EU tariffs, trade with India, and the critical issue of frozen Ukrainian assets. All 3 are hitting their final stage right now. But the most interesting part about the victory window is that it isn't just for politicians. It works on your personal level too, for everyone living and building a life in this country. In the second half of this video, I'll explain exactly how this period affects your personal relationships and business partnerships. So make sure to stick around. Today, I actually have some really good news for you. To give you an idea of the scale we are talking about, let's just look at the facts. These aren't magic tricks. They are the result of cycles in the US has been utilizing for decades. Take the summer of 2022, while the world was distracted by global chaos. The US launched the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment at the G7 summit in Germany. We are talking about a $600 billion commitment. Honestly, it was a masterstroke to outmaneuver China's influence in Africa and Asia. American companies secured massive contracts, and the dollar status as the backbone of global investment was solidified. All during the very first days of that year's victory window. Oh, look at 2011. Libya was in the middle of a civil war, total uncertainty everywhere. But on July 15th, the final day of that astrological window, Washington became the first to officially recognize the new government. It was a strategic move. The first one at the table is the one who dictates the terms for oil contracts and political leverage in the region. Even if we go back to 2007, the pattern holds. On June 30th, the absolute peak of the window, the US and South Korea signed the KOR-US FTA. At the time, it was the biggest trade deal in 15 years. We literally opened a market of 48 million consumers for American farmers and automakers right when China was trying to push us out of the region. And just 2 weeks later, on July 14th, as part of the same cycle, North Korea agreed to shut down its nuclear reactor in Yongbyon. Tensions in Asia dropped, market exhaled, and the economy got a fresh boost simply because the level of fear had decreased. Different years, different presidents, and completely different crises. But every single time during this 3-week corridor, the US makes a breakthrough that changed the game for years to come. So where do we stand right now in 2026? The picture is coming together with striking precision. The tariff negotiations between the US and the EU have been dragging on since the start of the year, and both sides have publicly hinted that they aimed for a resolution by late June. At the same time, Washington and New Delhi have reached the end game of their second major trade package. And then, of course, there is the issue of frozen assets, where the US position is currently the deciding factor for every global player. All 3 processes are hitting the finish line in these exact 3 weeks. Although, in general, this period doesn't mean that this will necessarily happen with these directions. Therefore, diplomatic and economic successes may concern other events. Historically, when this window opens, the US already has the infrastructure in place to close the deal. So just keep an eye on the news starting June 23rd. We are likely to see a series of very strong moves. But here's the key takeaway. The victory window doesn't just happen in government buildings. During these periods, the overall atmosphere in the country shifts. You might notice that the projects or partnerships that have been stuck for months suddenly start moving on their own. And that's not a metaphor. If the logic of the cycle allows the government to close $1 billion deal, That same logic helps you close yours. If you've been waiting for the right moment to ask for a raise or renegotiate terms with a business partner, this is it. Between June 23rd and July 14th, people in America are subconsciously much more inclined to say yes. This applies to your personal life too. Relationships that needed a right moment or a tough conversation often find a resolution here. It's a momentum that flows from the top down, from global treaties to simple human agreements. In every victory window, America has come out on top. It's how the country builds its foundation for years to come, signing trade deals that reshape markets and securing investments before competitors can even react. On June 23rd, this mechanism kicks in again. And if you need to keep one specific date in mind, let it be June 30th. That's a peak, and it's going to be very interesting to see what it brings us this time.